welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we have some information and a potential volunteer opportunity for you. It's a project called the Freedmen Bureau project, and these two women are going to explain it to you. My guests are Selma Stewart and Traci Ganuza. Welcome.
Hi.
And I'm just going to introduce you a little bit, but Traci, you work at the Hampton Public Library.
Yes.
And you are involved in the research department there, or just the general circulation? What do you do?
Actually, I'm just in reference.
Okay, reference.
In that department, we help all over everything. We pretty much research everything.
All right, and you got involved in this project. Your library career was sort of secondary. You brought us the project in the library from your church.
Yes, at church we were discussing ways to help out more with our family history. And one of the projects through the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they're promoting the Freedmen Bureau project. The Family Search is one of the organizations through the church, and they purchase these records so we can help increase family search for those of the African-American community.
And, you know, it's amazing. Nationally, the church has done a lot to promote genealogical research and to facilitate records.
Yes.
Now, you come to it, Selma, from a slightly different perspective. You've been involved in genealogy and research for a while.
Yes, for quite some time. I started doing research in 1991. But specific to this project, I am a member and the president of the Hampton Roads chapter of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. And the OGS, as it's known, is one of the partners with National Archives and Family Search in indexing, the indexing project for these records.
So these records are from the Freedmen Bureau, which was pretty much right after the Civil War for about 10 years.
1865 to about 1872.
Okay, so, and the problem is, and I've looked at the samples you brought me, this is all written longhand. I mean, it's wonderful to have the records, first of all, but they're longhand records. They can be very hard to read. They're all little pieces of paper that have been scanned in, and in order for people to use them, you have to translate them into basically a database and something that's searchable.
Right.
Exactly.
The original records were stored at the National Archives. I saw them in their original state.
Did you
They were
really?
microfilmed in the late 1990s, and now they've been digitized. And so we're working on a project to index them so people can put in names of their family members, and see if they were had any contact with the Bureau. Not everyone had contact with the Bureau, but it's an incredible resource.
Right. If you were a freed African-American or living in the North, or there are different ways that you might not have been entered, or even they just weren't able to catalog everyone. Was it?
It depends. The Freedmen's Bureau operated in the southern states. But it's everybody in those communities who had contact with the Bureau.
So it's supposed to be everyone, but...
Well, not every... It was not everyone, but those who had contact because of, for marriages or a census or for court records or different activities that the Bureau was operating in those southern states.
Mm-hmm. Now, Selma, you've done some genealogical research, and African Americans can only go back up to that point, really, essentially, and that point wasn't even searchable, and hopefully it will be soon, but it's a huge roadblock trying to find your ancestry if you're an African American.
Well, if your families were African American and enslaved, it's not that you were not in the records. I mean, you are in those records prior to emancipation in 1865, but you are not generating those records. You're now in the records of slave holders, slave owners, traders, court records, wills, deeds. So it is the period after the war, and especially in these Freedmen's Bureau records, where African Americans who were previously enslaved speak for themselves.
Which is
that's
a
the difference.
huge
It's a
point.
huge thing. They give their names, they name their children, they name their wives. They give information about who their former owners are. It's not always direct, because you have a certain last name does not necessarily mean that that former owner, you were owned by someone with that last name. So there are a lot of complications in that type of research. So these records really provide an incredible amount of research information.
So what we're going to do then is we're going to stop for a second and see a clip about the project so you can learn more about it. And when that's over, we're going to come back and tell you how you can get involved and help us catalog these records. We'll be right back.
Shortly after the Civil War ended, some 4 million slaves were set free, and they would not have had any place to stay, any place to sleep, or any food to eat had it not been for the concept of the Freedmen's Bureau.
It was a very scary thing for the freedmen at that time because there was no sense of protection.
They're working sometimes for the same person who had enslaved them, who was not excited about paying money to the same people whose labor he had had for free for decades. That was an adjustment, and that brought about the need for someone to intervene and to be a go-between between former slaveholder and those once enslaved.
The government felt that they needed to bring some order to this chaos, and in that process created the Freedmen's Bureau.
His primary mission was to assist the former slaves in making this transition from slavery to freedom.
It provided them an opportunity to get work permits, to find work, started schools called Freedmen Schools. What became even more important for us now was that they not only asked them their individual names, but they asked them questions about their background, who they had been slaves with, who their parents were, who their spouses were, who their children were, where they were born.
One could argue that the Freedmen's Bureau records are some of the most valuable records to study the African-American family.
It makes a difference to know where you come from and who you come from, because when you know where you're coming from, then you can design where you are going.
I had a conversation with a friend and he said, you know, black genealogy is not fun. You can't find anything. I'm a novice when it comes to family history research, but I've hit that wall, that time period where there's no documentation of your family anymore.
The African-American community through slavery was split up, divided. Families were torn apart. We don't know who our family really is or from where we originated.
African Americans get back to 1870 and they can't go beyond that. So you'll hear a lot of African Americans say, the records don't exist because of slavery, or I can't find my family tree, or should I give up?
As African Americans, everything has been said, oh, there are no records. We don't have any history. We can't document anything. Well, it turns out that's not true.
The Freedmen's Bureau project is really designed to take records and actually make them searchable online for individuals trying to research African-American family history in the United States.
There were well over 1 million documents in those records. So we're talking about a lot of material, a lot of stories, and if we don't digitize them and index them, nobody's gonna know.
We need to make these records available to everyone. We need everyone's help to make these records available to everyone because they will provide a window to identify your family in their records and to move back into that pre-1865 time period.
We have to go back to the past in order to understand the future. It helps us understand, why do I do what I do? Why do I act like this? Why do I feel this way?
Being able to say, I know where I came from. It's a sense of identity. It's looking at that ancestor and saying, look at them, they survived. It's because of what they did, I'm here today.
If they made it through, then I can too. My future can become bright. I don't have to be stuck in the past, but I need to know the past so that I can get through my future and make a better life for me.
Everything that we are is because of them. It is vitally important to know that you're here for a reason.
This is a chance for us to learn our story and then tell it to the world in a way that it has not been told before.
Those records that are not indexed can make that connection between a former slave and their master, which is the critical connection that African Americans need to do slave ancestral research.
To have this information on index where you could type in your ancestor's name and that name can come up and that document can come up, it means so much.
The project is to really solicit volunteers from around the country to help us actually transcribe these records and make them searchable so individuals like myself can find their own families in these records.
Why not participate in this project to make it easier for not only you, but future generations to find this information and really tell and create that story about their family history?
We're helping to rebuild or reconnect to our ancestors, so we all need help. And you can help and provide that help by getting involved with the project.
Get involved with this project. It's worth it. It's worth all the time and energy that it will take to get this project off the ground.
Okay, now we know more about the project on a national scope and what it's going to do. We're going to talk about how you can help get involved. So we're going to have, we meaning you, are going to do some sessions at two of the Hampton public libraries to teach people how to do this cataloging.
Yes, it's so important that we get the community involved. There's the African-American community in Hampton Roads is an abundance and in need of these information. At the library, people are always searching, and they run into those roadblocks, as Selma was saying, because they had ancestries that were in the slaves. And we want them to be able to reunite with their family. That's what the Freedmen Bureau Project's all about, is families and bringing them back together. So in December, January, and in March, and depending on how the turnouts are, hopefully we'll get a great turnout. If those that want to learn and how to participate and volunteer in this indexing can come with their questions, concerns, their laptops, tablets, and see how we do it and how they can help find these names. If we each, you find 5 names, and I do 5 names, and Selma does 5 names.
Selma's going to do more than 5.
That's
I
true.
can tell that already.
I did 10 just the other day. And we all do those names together. It might not be anybody that we know, but it might be someone else's family. And that's just brings so much joy into, I think, each person's life to know that you're reuniting someone. So we'll have Selma there, and we'll have someone that's there to explain how to index, how to read these handwritten records.
See, that is what I think. You know, I've looked at the samples, and it's a tiny bit intimidating. So you guys are going to walk us through how to read this handwriting. And the other thing is, I'm not the only one looking at this document, right? You're going to have a backup for me.
Yes. There's 3 ways that the system has to do it. There's 2 people each document. So you'll see, let's say we see the same document. You'll go through it once. You'll read it the way you can, decipher the names. Then it will go back in. You'll submit it. Someone else will go through it. So let's say I get to go through this. I'll submit what I see in the names. Then we have an arbitrator that comes through and makes sure that what we did was clear and concise. And then it's submitted so people can then search those names through Family Search, Ancestry.com, and all these other online websites.
Now, how long does this take? Like, you're asking me for some time here. How long do you think it takes to archive, 5 documents?
Maybe 10, 15 minutes, half an hour. It depends. You do have to read the document. You're looking for the names. There are different types of records. Labor contracts will ask for the name of the laborer, the name of the person who is hiring them, and the state and the county. And so it depends. There's a rhythm to it, and you get used to the handwriting. And so it depends on the project.
So,
they usually only give you batches of 4 or 5.
Oh, wow.
So it's not like you have 20 pages.
That's great. And it doesn't take that long. And I can do it from home. I can do it in my PJs, sitting on my computer, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And that's the wonderful thing about this project. As I said prior, when I saw them in the 1990s, these were the original documents. And unless you went to the National Archives in Washington, D.C., you really didn't have any access. So this really opens up a whole wealth of information that prior was not available
And
prior
you've
to
done this before with Virginia records.
The Virginia
state
records were
as well.
done between 2008 and 2009. There were 203 microfilm reels of Virginia records, and they've been available on Family Search since 2011. So we're very excited. Those of us that worked on that original project are very excited that the rest of the state's records are going to be now available for everyone.
That is wonderful. What a boon. And, you know, it is mostly for African Americans to search their heritage, but there's a lot of owners, former owners, businesses hiring. I mean, there's a lot of names in this that provide anyone in these southern states with a fuller picture of their heritage and their family.
Well, most of the Bureau officials were white. They're also school teachers. You have school teachers coming down here. They're writing letters asking for jobs. So there's really information on a lot of people in these records.
That sounds wonderful.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to put the dates back up on the screen. We're going to encourage people to come to the library. The orientation, they'll feel much more familiar with how to do this. And if they have any questions, we'll put up a number that they can call to get more information. Is that all right?
It's terrific.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for this, and thank you for watching. I hope you will volunteer and step up. It's something you can do from home if you have a computer. You can do it at the library on their computers, but help us get these names archived so people across the nation have this research at their fingertips. Thanks for watching.